Hello, my name is Jonathan Steele, coming to you through the Stable Podcast, and welcome you to my show, Could You Be More Specific? And on this episode of Could You Be More Specific, I want to do a follow-up on the Amanda Seales topic that I just recently did, just expanding upon further in regards to the differences between black men and black women and how we view the relation of child support and just beyond child support, but looking at our families. And it does seem like one thing with her, she still has stood behind what she said overall. She's not defending all black men in terms of every situation that they're in. It's just, other black women wanting to get them on child support. She did not say that. And it's not always the case that all black men are always doing the right thing. You do got some guys that they don't take care of your children, that don't take care of their children. But in relation to that, in this overall social media world, you can't really be worried about trying to make every side happy, because you're going to go crazy, because no matter what you say, it's never going to be that. So I do agree with her in the sense that what she was looking to say is that the most important thing about our community moving forward is about keeping our families together, but keeping families together based off of tolerance, working with one another and sympathizing. If a relationship doesn't work, then it just doesn't work. Her main issue and what she's pointing to, which is something that people are not really elaborating on or thinking about, is the fact that you're essentially involving the government further into our communities when there's already so much from an institutionalized standpoint that's already against our communities to begin with. So that's what she was ultimately stating. She does not need to have a child in order to make this assessment. Like a lot of us in our community, we have friends that go through this. We have family members that go through this. Some of us personally may go through it or not. But we are aware of this subject matter. And based off our experiences with the people that are around us, we can go either end with that. So that's something that I think for the people that, and I get it, it's social media. People don't like what you say. They're going to make some dismissive comment, and a lot of times they are. But then there are some people that will make a constructive critique about what you'll say. But one of the things I want to kind of pick up on in regards to her is that it wasn't just some sort of broad statement that was just thrown out there. She made a critical assessment of this situation in terms of the issue that's in our community. And she gave her honest opinion. I don't think she was looking for you to agree with it, and nor should she. People got to state their facts as to what they believe based off the evidence that they have. So that's something I kind of want to continue to build upon in regards to that. I'll say this for an example. Say someone like 50 Cent years ago, when he had his first child around the time that his first album was coming out. And I remember not too long after that, they weren't together, but he was paying her, I believe, $25,000 a month. And I don't know how factual those numbers are, but that's what they were saying at the time. That's what was reported. So he was essentially paying $300,000 for the year and paid all her utilities and bills and got her a house. And they did that without the court. But because a friend of hers relayed information to her that, hey, in New York, you're supposed to get 18% of what he makes, because he was making millions of dollars, it came across that, so he was underpaying her, and then she took him to court, and then it ended up getting reduced from $25,000 to $6,700. That's a real issue, but just think about that. Over additional money, it drove a wedge in their relationship, and it led to them now, and I don't know what it is like now, but that led to something that did not really need to be there, because more than likely they were pretty much probably on good terms. We don't know what their personal relationship is, but that's a scenario. That he was doing something without court that was good. And there's a lot of guys that do like to do this thing without court. They don't want to have all their information tied to the justice system if you don't have to. Now, in other instances, you do. You do. Because there are men that just walk out. And that's not a made up statistic. But we got to be able to handle more than two thoughts at one time. I mean, it seems like that's what happens on social media. Someone makes a comment about a topic, and then people make their assessment based off whatever was stated, but no one decides to wait and say, like, okay, so what was the other side of this? And that's something that we got to do a much better job at in terms of being able to hold more than one thought at one time. And also, too, it's okay to disagree with somebody or agree with them. And if you agree with someone when the opinion's not popular, not for the sake of disagreeing with them because you just want to be, to be a contrarian, but just if that's something you honestly believe in, you should be able to do that. And I'm going to kind of segue from that topic moving forward right now and kind of go to transition one on with this Chris Hardwick situation and what happened with him. And I know, again, that's another online media about, well, what was the circumstances of an ex that he's now having details come out about abuse allegations. And again, no one will ever truly know that situation that they had because ultimately it was a private relationship. But once the initial statement is made, it's like, okay, this is the account that his ex-girlfriend is making about him, Chris Hardwick, that he worked with his ex and he ran his Nerdist podcast. He's, become a really, pretty influential media mogul. And upon the information that was released, AMC decided to pull his shows, and they're not canceling his stuff, but they're going to do it upon a further review. Now, some people I know were upset who defend him and saying, well, he's innocent until proven guilty, and we can't do this. It's like, well, AMC is not a court of law. AMC is a company. It's a private company, and for them, most private companies, especially in the entertainment industry, they're ran by advertisers. A host of his popularity who's accused of something that serious, they have to respond accordingly because you can lose millions of dollars in a day and effectively, be at a loss. So you saw that just a few weeks ago with Roseanne show. I know a lot of people are praising the ABC president, but she really didn't have that much of a choice. Once her boss, Bob Iger, called her, even when that fallout happened, because he called, she had to spoken with him before she moved forward on that. She had to run it by him, and then they probably checked that all the advertisers were pulling out of the show, and then essentially probably informed her to go ahead and terminate her, because everybody has a boss, even in companies like that. So that's an example I want to paint that AMC was in. Like, they're a private company. Obviously, they have a working relationship with Chris Hardwick. They've had a really good one at that because they continue to do business with him, and his shows have done very well and have generated revenue for their company. But on the other hand, with the recent, I guess, text messages that was released that Chris had with her in the past, it does appear that their relationship was a little bit more complex, at least in the context of those text messages. And again, there's no way anyone will truly know what was happening in a relationship with two people over the course of several years. It's just, there's going to be ups, there's going to be downs. I know some of that was detailed in some of the emails about, them giving it another try and them working through issues. Now, she does work in the international media or was working especially on web shows. One of them I know was a Comic-Con show that his ex was working on. But the blackballing thing is a real thing, and you don't really have to necessarily call her by name. You could just, in an indirect way, say that she's a headache or a problem, and that can seriously affect her career. Now, there's no way of knowing officially that was done, but that's a real thing, and that's another thing that kind of goes to, I guess, working with someone that you have a personal relationship with, because that's a really muddled, murky area to be in, to be dating someone that you have a working relationship with as well. Some people do it very well, but there's reasons why most companies would prefer that people don't do that, but understandably so, a lot of people end up spending the majority of their time at work. Most of us spend the majority of our time more so at work than we do with our own family. So that element's going to be there. It's going to be hard. They've tried to legislate that, obviously, in terms of, company policies. But again, that's a tough thing to try and regulate. That's just some of the things I think we kind of got to be aware of too, especially when some of these stories hit. And another thing about me, especially personally moving forward, is that on no matter what the issue is, I like to go off of whatever information is in front of me and then digest it and then make my best assessment based off what's in front of me. Definitely want to look at as much of it as I can and then try and see about parceling out what I think is probably related to what's the actual issue of that topic versus something that's kind of a sidebar to it. And that's something that you can also mention, but you don't want to get too distracted with that. So overall, in terms of talking about both these topics, they're two similar things that have been going on in the news media lately in terms of talking about issues between men and women. One is the initial statement, and then two is the response. On the previous pod, I know I touched on the Nas situation briefly, and I know I was reading an article where they were saying that on one of the reviews that they noticed he didn't mention it at all on his album, and he hasn't publicly commented on it. I know I had said that I wasn't aware if he did. I don't think he had, but I did a follow-up thing, and there's no press release that states that Nas made a comment about that. And at that point, and at this point right now, with where he's at, not as much musically, but in terms of where he's at as a public figure, is that a topic that he should really address, in the sense that there's really no right or wrong way to really address that. I mean, he could deny it, and even upon the initial denial, he'll still get flack from that, and rightfully so, because the assumption is that he did that. But then if you look at the details of what actually happened between them, and some of that is mentioned, then you would say, well, that's a little bit murky too if you're saying that you both got drunk, because now alcohol's now involved in this incident, and a relation of details matter in terms of when you're saying something actually physically happened that was violent, and that's a serious allegation, and that's something that person should have a right to respond to, whether you agree with it or not. That person still has a right to defend themselves. And again, that's another thing that's kind of hard to prove as well, because ultimately that's between those two. But those are just some of my thoughts on that. In terms of the Amanda Seales thing, one thing with her is that she will respond, I noticed, to people that leave a lot of comments on her pages. And I get why she probably does to a certain degree, because for her, she's very aware of what she's saying. And I think for a lot of intelligent people, especially like her, it's very hard to deal with nonsense, especially when it's not actually even coming from a place of where it's based in like rooted intellect, where you're coming at her from a sense of like, oh, okay, that's an argument where I can actually take time to think about. She probably still wouldn't agree with you, or that wouldn't change her opinion. I mean, her opinion ultimately is her opinion, but at least if it was coming from a place where it was nuanced, then she'll probably understand it. But if it's just this broad brush blanket statement stuff that we make, then I don't think that conversation is going anywhere. But I do think moving forward in the Black community that we kind of got to get to a point about really working at some of the things that was mentioned in that topic about how we co-parent and how we interact and how we build our families together. Not everybody is, say a Will and Jada and his ex-wife situation. Not everybody's working that cohesively to try and make sure their families are as strong. And even with them, they had challenges in with that. So those are just some of my thoughts I have on that. I want to thank you guys for listening to this podcast. My name is Jonathan Steele. Thank you for following Could You Be More Specific? Definitely like, share, follow. Continue to support this page. And thank you to Dee for all the work that you're doing. I look forward to doing more of these in the future. And you guys have a good one.